I'm a graphic designer and I teach graphic design at UTC, and I'm going to talk about zines. Okay, go ahead. So, what is a zine? A zine is a relaxed form of publication, which is often cheaply produced, like with a copy machine or a digital printer. It's self-published and available or open to a wide range of authors and artists, topics, and genres. Anybody can make a zine, and a zine can be about anything. The first books that were probably called fanzines were these books from the 1930s about science fiction. And back then, the mainstream press wasn't really interested in science fiction. So in the 1930s, science fiction fans made their own books, and they called them fanzines, and that's where the term comes from. So for a long time, zines were the voice of outsiders, and that included political dissidents too. In some ways, we can see Thomas Paine's Common Sense as a zine. It was self-published, it was independently produced, and it was revolutionary. And that was echoed in the 1990s with queer zines and feminist zines, which also had political implications. In the 1970s, there were these things called punk zines, which were, again, the voice of outside mainstream media, which at the time was more interested in pop music and things like that. So they had, the fan base back then made their own publications, and they called them zines. But you don't have to have a political agenda or be a punk rocker to love zines, or to read them, or to make them. You can just have an interest and a desire to share it. And so these are just a couple of zines made by people who have something they want to share, a skill like cross-stitching, or maybe a nerdy interest in typography. And sometimes people just make zines about places they've been. This is a zine called Coney Island Baby by a European who visited Coney Island in New York. And she printed it digitally on newspaper, and it had like a beautiful materiality, but that's all it's about, it's just a trip. I happen to really like zines about cooking or food, and so the one on the left here is called Put an Egg on It, and it's just about eating, which is great. And it's printed on green paper, and the one on the left, my friend Christina gave me a bunch of these for Christmas, and they're called short stack editions. This one also happens to be about eggs. I also love zines that are about taxonomies, which are just sort of like random collections of things. This one on the left here is called Famous Hairdos of Popular Music, and it's really just pictures of Loretta Lynn's hair and other people's drawings of her face. And the one on the right is about the letter X and how it's been used to signify everything from buried treasure to like alcoholic beverages. This is a zine by a Portland artist named Kate Bingham-Burt, and she made a taxonomy zine of things she buys. And she did this for years and years. Every month she would publish the zine, and each page was a drawing of something she bought. It would be like, you know, a cup of tea or holly at Christmas time, or sometimes it'd be like an air freshener. And these are probably my favorite zines. These are art zines, I call them, because there's not really another way to call them anything. But what I love about these zines is that they're so open and interpretive that every time I look at them, I see something new. I see something like to learn each time, or some new part of a story, and that's fun for me. And I guess I just I like reading zines like that, and I also like making zines like that. I happen to make zines, and I self-publish them under this this name Octagon, and they're all art zines. And every time you look at them, hopefully you'll see something new. And I sell these at like independent bookstores all over the country. It's kind of funny to me sometimes that people buy them. And I also kind of just have a thing for books that have pictures of books in them. But anyway, zines are awesome. I mean, I'm a graphic designer, and that's sort of like my artistic toolkit, right? Type, image, paper, ink, and it's exciting to me to know that anybody can use those same tools to make something that expresses their interest or tells their story. So why should somebody care about zines? Well, I believe that zines are democratizing, and they promote empathy. Because anybody can make a zine, and there's no publisher involved, a zine is a window into someone's life. It's a window into someone's interests. And I happen to be, I'm just inspired by the fact that a college-trained artist can be on the same shelf as someone's 8th grade fanzine about Star Trek, which I think they got extra credit in English for. That can be on the same shelf in a bookstore or in a library, and that happens to be my current project right now. I'm working with the Chattanooga Public Library, to create a collection of zines, which will be available this spring to the public. And what I'm excited about is all the things I'm learning about self-publishing, like these guys. Pennant Bravo has been around since the early 1960s. It's a guy named William Boyes who publishes it in Knoxville. And he's a part of something called the National Amateur Press, which has been around since 1867. And this is paper magazine. He's going to be on the same shelf as this guy from Canada who's coming to Chattanooga to sell his zines. And it's literally a paper bag, and you pull out tiny pieces of paper with comic book frames on it. And as the reader, you get to decide what that story is. And I think that's cool. Yeah. This is a Chattanooga zine maker named the Reverend Tom Foote, and he finds these like business reply cards out of mainstream magazines, and he writes a haiku on each one. He's inspired by this thing to write a haiku, and every issue is that. He's been doing this since 1995. So he'll be there too. One of the things that I'm excited about is seeing my students at UTC make zines. And this is one by Gabby Blade. She just graduated last year. And it's a zine about tweets about cats. So, I mean, a zine can really truly be about anything. But I'm interested in how this digital media becomes printed media, too. The students at UTC started a club called the Society of Ink and Paper, and that's exciting for me to see. They had an exhibition last year about just self-publishing and experimental forms of the book, and they're doing one again this year at the end of March. So if you're interested in learning more about zines, you should go to the Apothecary. It's on the corner of Palmetto and McCallie. And there's a couple other events happening this spring where if this sounds interesting to you too, or if you just want to learn more, even if you just want to make one, there's an event at AIGA, Apothecary, and then Chattanooga Zine Fest on May 10th. Thank you.